Four students from the University of Idaho were stabbed to death in their beds. A picture of how the crime likely unfolded is slowly taking shape. Early in the morning on November 13th, Ethan Chapin, Madison Mogan, Xana Kernodle, and Kaylee Gonzalez were murdered in the house three of them shared with two other students. The crime shook their tight-knit college town, Moscow, Idaho. In late December, a 6-week investigation culminated in a dramatic arrest. Bryan Kohberger, who attended a nearby university, was taken into custody nearly 4,000 kilometers away at his parents' house in Pennsylvania. The 28-year-old has since been extradited back to Idaho, where he waived his right to a speedy trial and is now being held without bail until his hearing in June. He could face the death penalty or life in prison if convicted of the quadruple homicide. In the weeks leading up to his arrest, police faced pressure to move faster, but Idaho authorities have now revealed the trove of evidence they have been quietly gathering, which they say ties Kohberger to the murders. It includes DNA, a white sedan, phone data, and the eyewitness account of a surviving housemate. What the survivor told the police. November 12th had been a typical Saturday night for the residents of 1122 King Road, Moscow, according to various witnesses. Longtime couple, Kernodle and Chapin, had attended a fraternity party while best friends had visited a local bar, then stopped for a late-night snack at a food truck on the way home. By 2 a.m., all four were in their bedrooms. The two survivors were also home, asleep. The three-story share house usually bustled with life. At around 4 a.m. on November 13th, one housemate referred to by police as DM was woken up by strange sounds from upstairs. Then, she heard words that sounded like, "There is someone here." DM peered outside her bedroom door but didn't see anything. The next noise that echoed through the house was chilling. DM told police she heard crying coming from the direction of Kernodle's room, followed by a male voice saying, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." She didn't say whether the voice sounded like Kernodle's visiting boyfriend or a stranger. At around 4:17 a.m., a neighbor's security camera picked up a distorted sound like a whimper, followed by a loud thud and a barrage of dog barks. When DM opened her door, she saw a figure clad in black clothing and a mask that covered the person's mouth and nose walking towards her. She told police she stood in frozen shock as an intruder with bushy eyebrows passed her in the hallway and headed out the back sliding glass door. Terrified, she locked herself in her bedroom. Police arrived at the scene 12 hours later and learned what has unfolded. The grisly crime captured the public's attention because they triggered many people's deepest held fears, according to Mollett, a forensic anthropologist and criminologist from the University of Newcastle. It's partly wrapped up in that they were a group of young people asleep at home. They should have been safe, Dr. Mollett said. They have their lives ahead of them. We've got these pictures of them looking happy and healthy in the media. The five housemates were close friends and active members of their college community. Kernodle, 20, was a marketing student and a sorority member. Her boyfriend, also 20, was a triplet who dreamed of a career in sports management. Their two friends, both 21, were childhood best friends. The young women attended high school together and then moved to Moscow for college. They shared everything, Steve said, of his daughter and her best friend. In the end, they died together in the same room, in the same bed. The ABC is choosing not to name the survivors to protect their privacy. In the months leading up to the murders, the housemates seemed unaware that they may have been watching. Police have since seized phone data that places the prime suspect in the vicinity of the share house at least a dozen times before the night they were killed. Dr. Mollett said this type of stalking is often dismissed as a low-level offense, but in some cases, it can escalate into violence. Somebody doesn't break into a home, kill 4 people in that home, and leave without having a link to those victims, she said. Could well be that none of the victims knew the assailant, but there will have been some superficial contact. The killer clearly knew one or more of them. 2 vital clues are found. In the aftermath of the slaying, police found a litany of evidence. A shoe print was discovered outside DM's bedroom on the path to the back door. Video footage collected from the surrounding area, including from neighbors' security camera, showed a white sedan circling 1122 King Road. The sedan passed the victim's house 3 times after 3:29 a.m. before returning a 4th time around 4:04, parking nearby, then speeding away at around 4:20 a.m. A complicating factor for police was that the car didn't have a front number plate. Some U.S. states don't require one, or it may have been removed or obscured. And while the murder weapon, believed to be a U.S. Marine combat knife, has not been recovered, police found its sheath on one victim's bed. On the sheath, police identified another vital clue: DNA from an unknown male. The tiny speck of genetic material without any matches in police databases and glimpses of a common car may not have seemed like much to go on, but they led authorities to one man. As the murders became a national story, nearly 20,000 tips flooded the Moscow Police Department. But as investigators methodically worked through the evidence over 6 weeks, frenzied speculation and anger filled the void online. With the killer on the loose, many University of Idaho students were too scared to return to campus after the Thanksgiving break, and the families of the victims became increasingly frustrated with what they perceived to be a lack of progress in the investigation. Gonzalez's mother, Christy, said she felt left in the dark by authorities as weeks passed with no named suspect. Families want answers. Police are very conscious of the trauma that's associated with crimes of this nature, but they have to do their job, Dr. Mollitz said. What they can't do is release information to the family and risk it getting more broadly disseminated. That will actually harm their investigation. Soon, a narrative set in that local police were too inexperienced to handle such a complex investigation. Investigators were collecting and analyzing hours of CCTV recordings from across Moscow. From the video footage, they concluded that the white sedan likely headed to the southern edge of town, then across state lines into Washington. The road they believe the driver took leads to Pullman, another college town roughly 16 minutes by car. It's home to Washington State University, where Kohberger was a PhD student in criminology. It's also where he lived in an off-campus apartment. Footage of the car was given to a forensic examiner with the FBI, who identified it as 2011 to 2016 Hyundai Elantra. The FBI expert also reviewed additional video footage from around Washington State University on the night of the murders, which showed a matching white sedan leaving the area at around 2:44 a.m. and heading towards Moscow shortly before 3 a.m. In late November, Moscow Police Department had told nearby law enforcement agencies to be on alert. And more than 2 weeks after the murders occurred, a police officer at the university had a breakthrough. He checked for white Elantras registered on the campus and found one, a 2015 vehicle owned by Kohberger. Investigators then reviewed Kohberger's license and found he matched DM's description, roughly 6 foot tall with a slim build. His license photo showed he had bushy eyebrows. When delving into his driving history, police found that he had been pulled over for failing to wear a seatbelt in Moscow just 3 months before the murders. He was just a 5-minute drive from King Road, passing through the area at 11:40 on August 21st. Investigators obtained Kohberger's cellular data in the days and hours leading up to the crime. Going back to June, his phone was in the vicinity of the house at least 12 other times. All these occasions, except for one, occurred in the late evening and early morning hours of the respective days. On November 13th at around 2:42, his phone was near the King Road residence. Investigators reviewed data from cell phone towers covering the King Road house between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. and found no trace of Kohberger's phone. Rather than absolving him, police say that may indicate the phone was turned off or left in another location. This is done by subjects in an effort to avoid alerting law enforcement that a cellular device associated with them was in a particular area where a crime is committed, a police officer wrote. I also know that on numerous occasions, subjects will surveil an area where they intend to commit a crime prior to the date of the crime. Since the Golden State Killer was nabbed with help of an Ancestry DNA website, the DNA was taken from the crime scene and was entered into public database to find potential matches for family members, perhaps as distant as third cousins. Coupled with Kohberger's car and proximity to the crime scene, a partial match in the database may have been enough to prompt authorities to gather another sample. On December 27th, Pennsylvania agents took the rubbish from the Kohberger's family home and sent it to the Idaho State Laboratory for testing. The next day, the lab confirmed the DNA taken from the knife sheath and the genetic material on the rubbish were a near-definitive match for a biological father and son. Kohberger was arrested 2 days later. Kohberger, who was not yet entered a plea, was flown under the cover of darkness back to Moscow in handcuffs on January 5th. Dressed in an orange t-shirt and pants, he appeared in court before a judge who asked if he understood he faces the death penalty if convicted. Yes, he responded. The judge ordered he be held without bail on 5 charges, 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 of felony burglary for allegedly entering a house with the intent to kill. In a brief second court appearance, Kohberger gave the judge one-word answers and waived his right to a speedy trial. The hearing was set for June 26th and is expected to take 5 days. Authorities say PhD candidate has a master's degree in criminal justice and undergraduate degrees in psychology and cloud-based forensics. He once posted a survey in Reddit, which asked for participants to provide info to understand how emotions and psychological traits influence decision-making when committing a crime. Media strategy is incredibly important to investigators now. They know that they need to engage with the media. But they need to do so in a way that assists their investigation, and that is not always a strategy that's easy for the public to understand as it plays out. Given the stakes, still with the possibility that the prosecution may seek the death penalty, Kohberger's defense aims for a favorable ruling from the judge concerning the grand jury records and pause of court proceedings in the meantime. Their client's murder trial is set to start in 15 weeks. Jury trial is scheduled to begin October 2nd, 2023.